we're back and we have a truckload of things to talk about. So, what should we start with?
Rustin said it right. Lord.
Lord,
Yeah,
Lord have mercy.
I think so much we got Louisiana legislature just really screwing things up even more in this state. We got Trump, of course, um, constantly messing things up. I mean, there's plenty of shitstorms all over the nation. So maybe we start with the economy or taco.
Let's
I
start
don't know
with
if everybody.
taco because that's my favorite thing to come out. That's my favorite dig, and I feel like it may be the one thing that just like it's a dagger to his ego and heart, and I'm just obsessed with it. And to the reporter that confronted there's taco emojis, to the reporter, of course, is a woman who asked him what he thought about his new nickname. Protect that woman at all costs.
Oh my God, yeah. And you could tell it pissed him off so bad because he went on like a rambling rant.
Mm, mm,
It just struck him
mwah.
so hard. Um, yeah, so if people don't know, if you haven't seen the memes yet, taco means Trump always chickens out. And I think it mostly has to do with the tariffs and how he's just full of shit,
Mm.
basically. Because he is full of shit. He's always, yeah, he's putting tariffs on, taking them off. I mean,
I mean,
I don't,
even he even does it with policies. Everything is just fly by the seat of his pants every day. He probably doesn't even remember some of the things he put into place when he's canceling them.
yeah, and it's really big in like economics Twitter right now is taco because that's kind of why the stock market is like hanging in there because like he's just the the business people just realized that he's just going to lift him anyway because he couldn't stand the stock market being low or the
Mhm.
bond market hurting too much. So they're just like, okay, well, he's probably just going to end up lifting these and declaring a win, eventually in the future. So that's what a lot of the people investing in the market are thinking right now.
Yeah. It kind of makes me wonder about like, okay, if we start calling him out on that and name calling, which is one of the tools in his toolbox, um, and then what if that makes him change his behavior and not chicken out and follow through with it?
Yeah,
Um,
that's probably a likely scenario because he can't stand, he could dish it out, but he can't take it. And he may just double down and, his ego is everything.
it
So,
reminds me of like a lot of people say the whole reason Trump actually went through with running for president is when Obama made a joke about him in front of that audience of all of his peers. And from that moment on, he pledged uh, revenge,
vengeance. Yeah.
vengeance and revenge on Obama. And some say, and I know he talked about running for president. He mentioned it a bunch of times in interviews and stuff. But I think that was like a pivotal moment. So what's the cost then? It's like someone who's so diabolical in his malignant narcissism that he can do all the name calling, he can be the bully, but what happens when you push back on the bully um is interesting. So like I wonder, it's going to be interesting to see if he changes his tune on the tariffs now, because the truth of the matter is the market was not doing well and has been tanking ever since he started talking about the tariffs. It's not good policy, it's not good economics. So if he reverses and starts to not chicken out, then and we challenged him on that, then ultimately that's going to be bad for the economy. But at the same time, we have to call it out because everyone else sees it. The other leaders around the world that he's trying to negotiate already knew that he always chickens out. They've been playing him like a fiddle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right on both of those things. Whenever people started saying it to him on social media and the news reporter, like there's some people like saying like, "Hey, we're not supposed to tell him. We're not supposed to let him in on the joke because yeah, it could backfire on us."
Hmm.
And I think that, and somebody put out a tweet the other day saying like that one remark, this one joke could cost trillions of dollars in global GDP. Because yes, I think for sure he's going to double down on it. He doesn't like being humiliated. He's going to try to make up for it. But again, we have to call him out on it. We
Yeah.
can't just, you know, uh, just give way to his ego and be afraid to challenge his ego. Um, and I
And
think
I
also,
think ultimately that's how we got here. I think the people around him that he's kept around him have chosen not to call him out. They use their
mhm.
kid gloves with him, and at some point you have to call it out, and you have to say, is it enough is enough. This, you look like an idiot. You're not making the right correct decisions for actual people's livelihoods. You're the president of the United States. At some point you can only kid handle so much. I mean, the kid, look where the kid handling has gotten us.
Yeah, and I don't think he's gonna abandon the terrorists because, um, thinking about this the other day, like the Republicans are in such a tough spot because they've been selling us on trickle down economics for 50 years. So a lot of the problems that we have with the working class and the revolt, even Trumpism, was because there are stagnant wages for the last 40, 50 years. Uh, Benefits have been whittled away. Like so many people are struggling now. And so that, in a way, gave way to Trumpism. So he came in, again, like any fascist or, uh, you know, there was a great uh, reel on Instagram that I saw too, that like fascism is um, the right's way of trying their their solution to the problem that they created. And so he comes in as a fake economic populist,
Hmm.
saying like, "Hey, I see that y'all are all struggling, but instead of it being my party's fault and the people that I've surrounded myself with, I'm gonna give y'all some other scapegoats," and that's what fascism is. So his scapegoats for everybody's bad economic well-being is immigrants and foreign countries, which I
Yeah.
mean that's the fascist playbook. So this is his way, so that's why he's doubling down on ICE. He will not want to be embarrassed on that. He's gonna, because we were pushing him on ICE, like, hey, you aren't even deporting many people. Obama deported more people than you, and of course he doubled down and went even worse with it. And I think the same thing's going to happen with tariffs because that's his only like solution to fixing the economy.
Hmm.
Um, he's everything uh, rides on him and his tariff philosophy because he's attacking the scapegoat, and that's his really only way to do it. Um, and now also you have the federal courts saying that it's illegal because it is illegal. He declared a national emergency on trade, which is completely fake. There was no national emergency. It's supposed to be Congress that's supposed to put that out there, if anything. And of course, now is going to the Supreme Court, likely very soon. And I'm scared that the Supreme Court is going to let him get away with this. Um, and that's
With the tariffs or the deportations.
with the tariffs.
Hmm.
Um, I'm just worried that they will because he's got a huge advantage in the court, and I think they're just going to pick their battles where they can, and they're going to let him do this. And I think it's potentially going to get much worse here in the future because again, that's their only strategy. Uh, because it shows that he's doing something, to help people, even though it's completely fake.
Right.
People see that he's out there fighting with the made up scapegoat, which is other countries in China and Europe and all the smart people around the world that are taking advantage of us. That's his only way to fight it. So I'm afraid. I think this is a turning point and not a good turning point. I think things are going to get much worse.
And what's ironic about what you said about him using the polarization and the wealth inequality is that it's been the Republican presidents that have done the most to cause that massive separation of the ultra wealthy and the poor, and the evisceration of the middle class. And what are they doing to actually treat that problem? That real problem is the big beautiful bill, which is more of the same shit that
More of
got
the
here in
same.
the first place. It's more of the trickle down economics that has proven time and time again it just makes the wealth inequality greater. And it's obvious they know that. Otherwise, they would have a lot of this stuff kicking in Trump's term, but it doesn't kick in until after he's supposed to be gone.
Yeah, and I think people are going to start feeling it soon. I mean, they're already feeling a lot of problems with Trump, but it's going to get worse, and that's the problem with fascism is they find more and more scapegoats.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like that famous saying where like they came for this group of people and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't me, but then they came for
Yeah.
this group of people, it wasn't me, and then they came
Yeah.
for me because yes, you're always having to find more and more scapegoats as the problem gets worse and worse, and then you have somebody erratic and just frankly evil like Trump, and there's no limit to what he's going to do.
Yeah.
um, and eventually, yes, the tide will turn. That's whenever him and the Republicans are going to have to make some really uh, bad decisions. Hopefully, they don't make them things like martial law and things like that to settle the big public uproar that's going to happen. Because, yeah, the only way out of this mess is democratic policies, and that's another thing too. Like, I think this is an opportunity for Democrats to look. We're powerless in a lot of ways. There's things that we can't control. They have the presidency, they have the Supreme Court, they have Congress in both houses. We're here in Louisiana. They have the governorship, all the statewide positions, and a supermajority in legislature. I mean, we're pretty much controlled completely by them, so they're going to have to own everything. And I think one of the problems with Democrats is, in a way, we kind of allowed Trumpism because we were too scared to be bold over the last 20 years to fix a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
We were too scared to do, Medicare for all. We're always, we tried, and there's reasons why, it makes sense that we did at the time. We didn't know that it was going to be, uh, uh, we were going to be led to this time that we're in right now. But I think right now is the time to just we really have to start being bold. And I think that's what people want because what the Republicans and Trump do is they put out bold and simple solutions, even though they're fake, like build the wall or get rid of all the immigrants or tariffs or whatever. But it's so simple to understand. And a lot of our best policies that we have, raising the minimum wage, bringing back union rights, ending right to work, um, fixing insurance, taxing the rich, Medicare for all. There's so many things that those are really simple and bold policies that are kind of easy to understand, but we've always been scared to go there. And I think now is the time where we start standing up and not being afraid of some of these policies. And I was watching a video the other day of Pete Buttigieg uh, before he ran for president. It was right when he was running for president, like in 2020 or whatever. And he said, "Look, they're we should be bold because if we say that we're for Medicare for all or some of these things, they're going to call us socialists. If we both sides it or say that we're not for it or we're for tweaks around the edges, they're going to call us socialists. So why not just do the thing that's right?" And I think that's where we are right now. I think if we really started going on offense and saying these are the things that we need to fix, I think that's something that we can run on and could get the public's attention as an alternative to what he's selling.
And you mentioned Pete, and I want to kind of circle to this conversation, and that Pete was recently on Tim Miller, so two of our favorite people. Um, and Tim was asking about this specifically, but Tim made a really good point, and he said the magic of Trump, which it's like it it's funny because this aspect of him to us makes it feel like he's just kind of dumb. He's just kind of a moron. But the magic to it is that his slogans around his ideas are very easy to like follow. So like build a wall, or like, what was he saying this run of election about immigration? Um just like, illegal, stop the illegal immigration. He holds on to things that other people, other Americans feel, and this was his point, other Americans feel like they can kind of join in on the fight with him because it's a real like simple, easy concept to gather around. And he used the analogy of like a bully on a fourth grade playground. If there's a bully and they're picking on someone and it's something easy to pick on, it's easier to join the bully side, especially if it's something simple like how they look, or um, something that they did. And I think that's what makes him so dangerous and ripe for fascism, because he gets to just pick on things. And it's easy to join that side. Meanwhile, the Democrats are playing a more sophisticated long game, trying to do things right, playing by the rules, trying to be careful nobody gets upset, like, so it's two different sets of rules for the parties. And I've been hearing that a lot in the stratosphere online. You're saying it, which is that we have to stop playing by the same old rules. We have to start playing more by their rules, which brings us to taco. But I will say this, interview between Tim and Pete, because Pete gives an answer, because Tim kind of asked him about that. Like, okay, he gives him a chance to go back in time and what would you change? And Pete's answers are very like specific and strategic and for the better of the people and economy. And Tim's like, really? Like, you wouldn't like that? Like, you wouldn't go back and change something that can prevent him from becoming president, like altogether? Like, you have the DeLorean. What are you going to do? And Pete's answer is basically kind of like, he's not going to be around in 15 years. The policies aren't popular. But I like how Tim kind of pushes back on Pete a little bit and is like, kind of like, wake up. Like, we can't just like wait for everyone's morals to come back to life. Like, we have to start playing a different game here. And it just because Trump may not be alive in 15 years doesn't mean that what he started isn't going to continue. So it's a really interesting interview. I suggest everyone go listen to it. I'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah, I think um, all of all of the Republican policies that are like that Trump is running on and MAGA really likes, and that a lot of independents gave into and voted for him, all that stuff wasn't popular before. Republicans have a way of of moving the polls, not listening to the polls, and we've always listened to the polls, and you know, at certain times in the past, Medicare, things like Medicare for all or taxes on rich or something like that, like we're just afraid to go there, and we didn't need to at the time. We're Democrats have a lot of the smart people and the innovative people, and we're like, okay, well, let's offer you know certain solutions of fixing things around the edges, but it's very complicated and people don't have time to think about that. People, you know, citizens, most people don't pay attention to politics like we do. Um, they're busy all the time. So whenever they do hear something, they, they need a solution, and things like a wall is like, okay, well, that's easy to understand. Even back then when he was saying that, people thought it was stupid, but then it's the only thing that made sense to him, and it was kind of a bold thing because it just sounds like, oh, that's one solution to like fix our problems. All I know is, if I'm working 40, 50 hours a week and I have kids and I'm busy and I'm struggling and I just lost my health care, like I just want a solution. I want it done. And Democrats never really came forward with the solution because we've always just been hesitant. We've always kind of been status quo and fixed things around the edges, which made sense. But Trump came in and solved a big problem that the Republicans have because they were becoming, if you remember Mitt Romney, they were becoming very stuffy, unpopular. They were losing votes all the time. And Trump like kind of came in and fixed everything. And that's why they, fixed their problems of not having any solutions because trickle down economics was coming for them. Um, and and Trump comes in with like, well, I'm just going to go in and like lie about solutions. Yes, it's unpopular, but if I just repeat it enough, people will see that we're doing something, that
Mhm.
Republicans are actually care about us. And I think that's how we got to where we are. And I think that because we have nothing to lose now, and we have everything to lose. Um, but like the Democratic Party doesn't really have anything to lose. Like it's time that we just like say like, okay, we have all these solutions that we've been sitting in our file cabinet that we were waiting for one day to be popular or whatever we have to sell, or maybe we would eventually get there in time. We just have to break them out now, because the tide is going to change, and we have to be ready for that. And I think we can make sure the tide changes faster by pushing simple solutions, because things like Medicare for all is like very simple. Like everybody gets health care. You don't
Mhm.
have to worry about your doctors. You don't have to worry about all the different insurance companies. If you're going to get kicked off, everybody's got it. We pay for it by paying for it through taxes. So if you don't make a lot of money, you pay a small premium. If you make a shitload of money, well, you pay a very big premium. It's as simple as that, and you can go anywhere. So but we've always been scared to go there. And I think it's time to do that. And things like climate change too, and insurance crisis. I'm about to write a Substack on this. Like we have a huge insurance crisis over here in Louisiana. Premiums are going through the roof. Republicans don't have an answer for it because uh, all they're doing is whittling away our rights to sue the insurance company because they're all stuck on free competition. Well, we need but the problem is the reason our insurance is so high is because we've allowed oil and gas companies to just slice and dice up our coast, getting rid of our barriers, and at the same time pumping uh, tons and tons of pollution and carbon dioxide in the air for 100 straight years. While all of those benefits and all of those resources that were sucked out of Louisiana, we didn't see any benefit from. We're the poorest state. It all went out of state to a few rich people in the state. It all went out of state to Exxon and China and Saudi Arabia, all these companies that owned a lot of these companies. And the simple solution is let's make them freaking pay for it.
Mhm.
I mean, they did all this damage over the last 100 years, and that's leading directly to our premiums going up 300 or 400%. Let's make them pay for it by charging them a fee. It would be a drop in the bucket to their profits. It would raise billions of dollars into our treasury of Louisiana every year, and we should go directly to pay down those premiums. It's simple, but we
Instead
Democrats have
of
always
them
been
like
so scared.
instead of them like sponsoring things and making it look like, oh, they're the main sponsor of like this school or this project or restoration, it's like, no, just pay it outright. Don't come in looking like you're the sponsor hero. I mean, you already get the ITEP deductions
But
or
Republicans have conditioned Democrats by attacking us as socialists for decades and decades and decades. We're scared of these solutions.
mhm.
We're hesitant because people don't like socialism. And if you tested a poll in a certain way and be like, oh, people are, they don't want you to do anything bad against oil and gas, or they don't want you to do anything bad about raising any taxes. Like we've just been so gun shy because the Republicans have conditioned this. And to me, I think it's all an illusion, and we better get out of that illusion, um, because I think the reason that we're not winning right now, especially here in Louisiana, is because we don't have any answers um, to the insurance crisis. Yeah, we're doing some good things in our legislature where we're trying to hold the insurance companies more accountable. That's what Democrats are doing. Yes, that's going to change things a little bit. It may stop the insurance premiums from going up as high. It may stall the premiums increasing that much, but it's not really a solution to put things back to where they were years ago before things started going up hundreds percent. Um, so I think that's what Democrats, if we want to win again, we have to just come out with those solutions. If they're unpopular right now, let's move the polls. We have to, that's what the Republicans did. You move the polls by drilling it in and saying this is the only solution we have to your health care, to insurance, it really is the only solution, and we're inevitably going to go there. So why not run on it now?
I I agree with you. I agree with that. We need simple solutions and they need to be communicated very clearly. I think Pete would be a great person and leader to lead that charge on the simple solutions and he's been talking about it a lot.
I
Um,
want to also kind of want to touch on what you said. I think is also kind of a bigger thing nationally about like Tim Miller, like used to be a Republican, and he's like saying like, why not just punch the bully in the face? Um, and that kind of also goes to another three things that have happened in the last few weeks. You have Jake Tapper that just came out with a book bashing Biden. Um, I don't know what Tapper and some of these people think, why we would want a Biden bashing thing right now. He's not president. A lot of people wish he was right now. Um, Jake Tapper's not going to get any Republicans by bashing Biden. They already hate Biden anyway, and they already hated Jake Tapper. Because Republicans aren't going to buy his book. Also, but like it ties to Gavin Newsom as well. Like he's running for president, so he wants to show like, hey, he's talking to the Republicans, but he's platforming Bannon and stuff like that. But it also goes to the Democrats' unpopularity right now, and I don't think Democrats have understood why we're unpopular. You know, people right now think that we're unpopular because we're not owning our own problems. And that's what Gavin Newsom, Jake Tapper, and a lot of other Democrats I see out there on the stage. I think I even saw Beto O'Rourke saying like you know, we're, uh, we're not listening, stuff like that. Like it's not,
the
they're unpopular.
introspection,
They
that like,
gotta,
oh,
yeah,
we don't need solutions. We just need to introspect
yeah. That's all we do. That's why
and
we're unpopular.
atone for our wrongdoings.
Yeah, like why keep doing like we've always done that. That's what Democrats have always done. Like
Yes, you're
Republicans bash us and we bash us. So we think we get extra points by bashing the Democrats too, but we have to understand that. That's why our brand, our national brand is so shit right now is because for decades and decades and decades everybody has the Democrats have run away from the Democratic Party. Even in
Mhm.
Louisiana, like people were saying, well, act like you're not like a Democrat in Washington. You have to run that way. You have kind of even John Bel Edwards kind of running away from that. Bill Clinton gave in to a lot of things. Barack Obama got used and abused, but he got sold on not being bold, but because he wanted to reach across the aisle. They use us that way, and
Mhm.
now we're doing it again. And we think that our unpopularity is because we're not atoning enough for our sins. That's the opposite right now, and I think they need to understand that people are upset about the Democratic Party. The Republicans already don't like us, but it's the Democrats that are driving the numbers lower right now because we're sick of the people just constantly beating ourselves up. You know what I
Rolling
mean? In
over.
public,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
rolling over like we want the Democrats to fucking fight. That's
Yes.
what people fucking want. They
Yeah.
want us to fucking fight at everything. They want us
Like
to be bold.
stop sending letters. Sending strongly written letters and do something. I get it. Yeah. Um, I have a couple of thoughts. In the talking points of simple solutions, and that's our way to fight back. I didn't hear, and I do believe this is a big part of why Trump is so popular because yes, I think there was a feeling of inequality, the middle class separating from the top. I think people were feeling that, and what Trump gave them was not just a simple solution, but he gave them an excuse to give in to their hatred and to
Yes.
their stereotypes. That it cannot be underestimated how important that part of is. And that also feeds into the fascism. It's like it was a perfect storm of what he provided for them. It was here's an easy solution, a false enemy, and you get to express your hate and you feel cheated and you feel like things aren't fair, and here's the scapegoat, and it also allows you your deep-seated racism to come out and gives you an excuse, someone to point to on why you're not doing better than you should be. um,
Yeah, and it's kind of the oldest playbook in the world, really, in human history. It kind of because it's so easy. We're so groups are you know easy to control with fear. Mass movements are easy to control with fear. But the right wing and fascism, just even throughout history, has taken many forms. It wasn't called fascism until the 20s or whatever. But it's the same thing that's always happened. And it really, I think most things in society come down to people versus money, or moneyed interest, and now corporate interest, versus what's right for the group and people. And the right always stands for the moneyed interest. So it allows to deflect, because Democrats can use fear, or can use anger. That's another thing that we're afraid to use, but we use it for the right thing, the right cause, the root problem for our cause, which is moneyed interest. Um, so whenever they use it, it's tapping into our instincts to go against other people and the other. But if we use anger and fear about these corporations, which are not people, these are entities that have no conscience, they have no emotions, because it's a group of people that that's driven by money. Um, to me, that is an honorary thing to use anger and fear about, and it's the cause of the problem.
Yeah, I have a lot I want to say about that, but yeah, the also the thing, um, this socialism thing. Okay, they've done the branding, they've done the work, they've dug in, and it's been successful. Republicans hate the word socialism, they associate it with communism. And so, two things about that. Dustin, thanks to one of your tweets about Louisiana cutting SNAP benefits, and the federal government cutting SNAP benefits, is there's a guy who always comments on your stuff. So I was like, let me go down this rabbit hole, and eventually got to the point of, okay, he eventually said it. He goes, I just want America to be great again. Okay, so we go back to that simple and I say, which America? What, name a time period? And he finally, first, this was funny. First, he mentioned the 30s. I was like, what
The 30s.
the hell are you talking about, dude? Like, you weren't alive. And also, like,
The 30s was the Depression.
the Depression. I'm like, okay.
And the rise of
Well,
fascism and Hitler.
I was like, I'm gonna pretend like I'm gonna give you like that as a freebie. Like, try again, like you weren't alive, bro. And and he said, okay, okay. The early 80s. And I was just like, exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
Why? Why was that your favorite time? And it's because it can be traced exactly back to socialistic policies that were put in place by the New Deal after World War II.
Hmm.
Wealth equality was more dispersed, it wasn't so extreme. There were a
Exactly.
lot of government safety nets and things in place that allowed people to have these like idyllic Truman Show lives.
Hmm.
And so the second thing I want to say on socialism is, I also recently listened to, and I'm a subscriber of Diabolical Lies. It's a podcast on Substack. Katie Grady Tassin. She's also she has the podcast called Money with Katie, which is really big. Her and Caro, I forget her last name, but they have this new podcast called Diabolical Lies, and they have an episode, and it's really long. You can listen to it over a couple days, but it's a deep dive into capitalism, and they also do some history lessons on socialism and Marxism. And what I discovered is called The Rise and Fall of Capitalism. And basically, they kind of dissect like this, a lot of what's behind this anti socialism rhetoric is this supposed desire for like pure capitalism. And it's like, we don't, so it goes into that. We don't have a pure capitalist society. If we did, we would eventually end up like a kingdom with serfs. Pure capitalism ends up with feudal, like the end scenario of that is feudalism, where you have
Hmm.
you have the what's the period in time when it was the Gilded Age.
Gilded Age, yeah.
You end up with the Gilded Age and pure capitalism, and that's why America eventually adopted a lot of um, government programs and socialism to help regulate capitalism. And then what I really was interested in finding out is that the United States of America throughout time um, have been sent on crusades where anytime any capital socialism or communism was trying to be um, like a trial, we sent in like troops, we sent in and like massacred these countries that attempted to do anything that looked like socialism or communism. So they've been rooting it out. So basically went to this proposal, which is like nobody's ever really tried socialism or communism. Excuse me. No country has ever really given it a fair shot, especially when it's because they label it so soon. As soon as like anything starts to look or take form, they label it, even if it's going to be like a hybrid of something, by saying, hey, let's try this combo of socialism with capitalism. The United States have a history of going in and rooting it out in very murderous ways, like going in and taking over countries and rooting it out in very evil, bloody ways. So I suggest everyone give that a listen, The Rise and Fall of Capitalism. You can learn a lot.
Yeah, that reminds me of a few other things that I've seen. There's great documentary, Ken Burns documentary on the Roosevelts, um, and um, and I saw one recently. I think this was Ken Burns too, about Joe McCarthy. I may be wrong, but it was good when you watch the Roosevelt documentary, because we kind of think like, oh, all this is like a modern phenomenon, like because we grew up in here and like people anti-socialism, calling everything communist. Basically, anything that helps people or helps the group, they just call communism.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but knowing that FDR faced the same thing, like there's so many quotes of him uh, talking smack to the right wingers for calling everything socialism as well. And you're right, like this period of time where they think that we were great or whatever was our highest point of socialism mixed with capitalism in our country. We had high tax rates. We had um, lots of services. We had huge public transportation projects, the interstate system. Wages were high, unions thrived. Those are the times that, like, when people think of good economic times in our past, they think of that. And I think that's what we're eventually going to go to, as long as they don't destroy the whole system, which is, I'm afraid, where we're heading with Trump. That's the big risk. But also, two other things that I watched recently. One, Turning Point Vietnam, that just came out on Netflix a couple weeks ago. I recommend people look at that. Your understanding of Vietnam and how it happened will just kind of blow your socks off. And I also went back and watched a documentary on Joe McCarthy, because was it Nate Cohn, Roy Cohn? That's how he got started with Joe McCarthy in the Red Scare times, and that was in the mid '50s or whatever. Again, it was the backlash to the New Deal and the Red Scare, calling everybody a communist, rooting everybody out. And Joe McCarthy, like the closest I've ever seen a person to Trump was Joe McCarthy. After watching that documentary, you have to go find it on like Amazon Prime. uh, you realize like almost everything was is Trump. That's where he learned it from. Roy Cohn, Trump's mentor, learned it from Joe McCarthy.
Oh my
Basically,
God.
doubling down. Just bullshit. Even the Red Scare even started on like bullshit. He just like made up something, and then the press came up to him and said, "You said there was 300 people in Congress that are actual communists." He just he was a no-name guy, like giving a speech somewhere, and he said, "I know 300 people in government," and that set off like reporters around the country, again using the media. He realized like, oh, I could just say one thing, and the entire media spotlight is on me. So he just made it up as he went along. He had no idea anybody that was in there. So then they started naming people. Well, I think this person is, and it turned into just a big media circus. In that same coalition, of people. Even though he went down in flames, in disgrace, and died of alcoholism because of that disgrace, kind of shows you where this ends up when you do the scapegoating. And this
Here's
the same
hoping.
thing this is the destination of the MAGA movement and Trump. It's going to go down in disgrace. Uh, I just worry in this case it may be a lot of destruction that could happen at the same time. But that's where it's going. And I think we have to understand the history of it. And hey, we've been there before. We've been here before. People, said bad things about socialism back then. They're doing it again now, but we have to look to the past and see how they got through it.
And I want to, had to write this down so I make sure I didn't forget it. When you mentioned Franklin Roosevelt, who also got pressured, when you're talking about Democrats being scared to do the thing we really want to do, to be like that, alternative to Trump of coming up with simple solutions and having a good leader and make it popular. It was Huey Long who had those ideas. As corrupt as he was, but I learned in the Rise and Fall of Capitalism, the same episode, that Franklin D. Roosevelt, Huey P. Long was gaining popularity because
Hmm.
of these ideas. He was more extreme than Roosevelt, and Roosevelt was scared he was taking a share of the votes. So that's when, like as you mentioned, Roosevelt started shaming socialism too, even though ultimately he put into place a lot of, then you're getting into the politics of like, okay, um, choosing your battles in order to win the war is essentially what happened with Roosevelt. But Huey P. Long out of Louisiana was the one. He was an example of saying the thing out loud and gaining popularity for it. Now,
Yeah,
if you could find someone who just isn't as corrupt, that might be a winning strategy.
yeah. I mean, there was a speech that was going around just the other day of Huey Long in a tuxedo. I think it was at some kind of Senate. Um, he was in a tuxedo, so it may have been some kind of Senate dinner when he was in the U.S. Senate, and he was sitting there calling out Mellon and J.P. Morgan and saying like, "Hey, they could spare some. We're all starving. They can spare some money for us." And of course that was communist and socialism back then. But it's like, yes, that's and it ended up becoming popular, and he was on his way and gaining popularity by the day before he was assassinated. And of course, FDR realized, FDR was happy that he didn't have the challenge anymore and adopted a lot of Huey Long's policies to push through a lot of the fixes in America, including Social Security. That was an idea that was really founded by Huey Long. He was pushing for that early on, and it was adopted by FDR after he died.
So interesting. Love a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Um, should we, let's see, we talked about, oh, should we talk about the pardons? The dinner, what is it? You had to spend like $100 million in a dinner. Did you see the picture of these plates that they served? And then people just got pardons. Like, like that's what's so frustrating. And again, circling back to like the episode with Tim Miller, and he's saying Pete's trying to still be diplomatic, and Tim's saying we got to punch the bully in the face because at the end of the day, these people ultimately are voting for Trump because of the inequality. But then he's in the same breath pardoning people of millions and millions of dollars in tax evasion. Like, make it make sense. Like, you again, like, how do you play that game? How do you play the diplomacy game when they're literally just stealing and cheating? It's so
Yeah, it's
freaking
so
frustrating.
yeah, and it's just like it just makes me so mad because to have anybody even back Trump or MAGA at this point when the corruption is so open, uh, and
He stole
just
his
is
employees' social security, like
yeah,
working
like
people.
they're selling pardons for $1 million, like literally pardons for sale. And seeing that U.S. Attorney that I think it was a pardon attorney or whatever that I shared on Instagram the other day, saying that now all the people that he's pardoned along that with that pardon comes with the uh, ending of the restitution that they have to pay. So they're estimated $1 billion in restitution that all these people are going to get away with. And it just goes back to that in the Qatar jet. It turns out now that he actually asked for the jet. The corruption is just so hard. It's just so hard to even um, understand the right side, right? The people on the right now that still back this. Do they just not know this? Are they seeing this corruption? Is it not being told on Fox News or wherever? Because if they hear this and see the high levels of this, I just don't understand how they can live with themselves sometimes.
And it goes back to, I saw a clip of Kevin O'Leary on CNN on Abby's Roundtable defending Trump on something. And finally, someone said it. They go, how can you blindly defend such a giant titty baby all the time? How do you keep doing that? Like, how do you keep making excuses for it? And that, because that is essentially what they're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, yeah.
I can go
That's all
on
it
and
is.
on about this. And, I mean, there's even
Yeah,
stuff
and the
happening in the
plane,
Louisiana legislature that we may have to cover next week, but there's just so much.
and they're saying the plane wouldn't even be available until like 2028 because of all the clearing out they would have to do, and so basically it would just be a private jet for him. And
Yeah, and like I think it
oh,
was like
I
seven
guess
hundred
maybe
million dollars it would cost to adapt it to. I mean, it's just
at this point
I
I'm
don't know.
hoping like at this point I'm hoping there's an insider, like a real rhino who's inching his way closer to try and convince Trump that Medicare for all is a good idea and that would like make him get a third term or something like that, because it's just like with the medication price, the price drops. Like he basically reversed what Biden did and then reinstitute it within like
Yeah,
weeks. And it's like, can somebody just kind of like slide him a memo on Medicare for all or climate change or like something that's really popular and that would be good for everyone, and but just kind of rewrite it. If you need to use ChatGPT, rewrite it and like frame it from like a far right Republican quasi Nazi form. Just slide it his way and be like, this would be a good idea. This would win you some votes. This would win you some
right.
popularity votes, and just start slipping him like these democratic ideas. I
I
feel like
mean, we're
that's the
joking
best I
about
can
it, but
hope for these days, huh?
yeah, I mean, we're joking about it, but that's like a legit strategy.
I'm here for it. Like, put him in, coach.
It
I
needs to
hope
happen.
maybe like the CIA. Maybe there's like an underground CIA that didn't get rooted out. Doge that's like actually working on this exact policy.
And the problem is though, like he's doing everything by executive order, which and not using Congress at all. I mean, he's not even trying to use Congress. He's just doing executive orders because he'll, if it gets struck down, which it eventually will, he could just say like everybody's out to get me, whenever he knows from the beginning like why not just work with Congress and get a good bill passed for some of these things. But he's too lazy to do it.
And
Anyway, I think it's a good
the
time to
last
end
thing I
there.
just want to leave with a little bit of good news because Pope Leo is coming through as our last bit of good news again this week, as it was 4 weeks ago. He has he's planning a speech because he's a big White Sox fan. He's planning a visit to Chicago, I think, and he's planning a speech that's going to be like talking to young people, and he's planning it on Trump's birthday.
Yes. That's how you do it.
Like the shade that Leo is,
Uh,
he's doing like, I don't know. I don't, it's just, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Taylor Swift and her little Easter eggs and her little sly ways of like jabbing people. I'm here for it. More of it, Pope Leo. I'm just team Pope Leo all the way. Like whatever we can do to jab at his ego. And
wow. Yeah, I mean that's
yeah.
masterful. Yeah, I mean he's using the
It's
power of the
master.
seat and the
That is a
attention.
mastermind move.
Yeah, I mean he's the only thing that can pull any attention from Trump, which is what Trump hates the most, pulling attention away from him. And the Pope is like really the only person in the world that can do it. And I think he knows that. So, I think we're in for some good days ahead coming from
Yes,
Leo.
exactly. And the most beautiful thing about it is like, who's gonna call the Pope a bully? It's like a bully tactic. It's like an
Yeah,
anti-bully tactic, but
yeah.
it's the Pope.
Love it. Yeah,
Beautifully
good
orchestrated.
news.
No
Good news,
notes.
Danielle.
More of that. Give him his flowers. I'm going to tune into that speech.
Me too.
Oh, I just want to give one last holler out. Have you heard of the film Lee? It's um
Um, I
it's
came across
about
it the other day. I saw it on there. I was like, "What is that about?"
it's about Lee Miller. She was a photographer in World War II. She was an American model. And so you get a little bit of that war. Well, you get a lot. You get a lot of the World War II kind of like how it was perceived from Europe and how she wanted to get involved. And she was she was one of just one or two photographers that really documented the concentration camps after
Mm,
it
mm.
happened. So very important work. It's a beautiful movie, great acting. Kate Winslet is a gem, a star, as always. And the interesting story, and I will leave with this, the coolest thing, and I hope I'm getting this right, but supposedly Lee Miller's grandson, when he watched Titanic back in the 90s, he had a thought to himself. He said, if anyone ever makes a movie about my grandmother, I want Kate Winslet to play it. Fast
Wow.
fast forward to several years ago, Kate Winslet is actually the one that approached Lee Miller's family to produce this movie and star in it.
Wow.
So I get
Wow.
chills when I think about it. So go
I
watch
have to
it.
watch it. Yeah,
It's a great
this
one.
weekend.
And all right, well,
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in on this
thank
Friday. We
you. Thank
appreciate you.
you. Happy summer. Try and enjoy yourselves. Go get some vitamin D and sunshine. Stay safe, and we will see y'all next week.
Bye.